We'll get there. Are you, it's the audit.
Right. Good evening, everyone. It is 5:25 p.m. and I'd like to call our board meeting for January 24th to order. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here, those in person and via live stream. We will begin with our tribute in partnership with the tribes who called Phoenix their home first. We acknowledge and respect the land our schools are built on. We commit to being a strong partner with any and all tribal nations who entrust their children to our schools. We are grateful and honored to be partners. With that, may we have roll call, team, whenever you're ready.
Good evening. Roll call for Ms. Jessica Bueno. Mr. Regional Carrillo.
Here.
Ms. Erica de la Rosa. Dr. Alicia Vink
Here.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Here.
Thank you.
With that, we do have a quorum present, so we are able to begin. Let's see. May we please have the Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Manley? All right. With that, we'll move on to the adoption of our agenda. Dr. Hagikat, do we have any recommendations for our agenda this evening?
Yes, we recommend that the agenda is adopted as presented.
We have a motion to adopt our agenda as presented.
Before I motion, I want to know if to pull an agenda item, kind of motion and then.
Then we
pull
can
it
have a discussion about that. After we motion and second it, we can talk about removing an item from the agenda.
Not removing it, just discussing it more in depth.
Oh,
So, yeah,
Okay. Roger Carrillo, I motion.
Thank
Alicia Vink, I second it.
thank you very much. Now for our discussion, which item?
I'd like to discuss the GPLET item 8, request approval of government property lease excise tax agreement with battery lofts.
Perfect. So can we pull that and then discuss that separately from the consent agenda, Mr. Thomas?
if we just have clarification for something, if you can ask your question, then we should be able to address it. If it's a little more than that, then we would need to pull. Go ahead.
Sorry. So what you might want to do if you do want to have a more fuller discussion, as your superintendent mentions, is that you can make a motion to adopt the agenda with the exception of the GPLET battery lofts agreement, which shall be placed in under the discussion items.
Perfect.
Okay, so I motion to adopt the agenda with the exception of
Item
the
E8.
item. Yep.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. Jake.
And then, do I have to say where we're putting it? Or just? I just want to make sure I get this correct. This item. All right, yikes. So we have our motion, we have our second, and we are voting to approve our agenda with the exception of item E8 that'll be placed under item F as a discussion item. Is that correct? Wonderful. May we have a roll call when you're ready, Mrs. Pham?
Can we specify where to place it? Can we discuss it first?
Oh, sure.
I feel like
guess.
it won't take too much time, but be more in depth.
Okay. I don't, off the top of my head, remember what Our first item is.
That item F1 is Exceptional Student Services Program Update.
Do
So
you
to
want
place
maybe
it,
before that or after?
before.
Everybody all right with that? Perfect. Perfect. Okay. When you're ready, we'll do a roll call vote to approve our agenda with the exception of item 8 being moved to item F1.
We're ready to take the vote. Mr. Regional Carrillo,
Yay.
Dr. Alicia Pink,
Yes.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. With that, our motion does pass, and we will move on to item A6, our awards, recognitions, and announcements. Dr. Hagikot, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Trujillo, governing board members and guests along with our cabinet. Tonight, we have a number of celebrations to share with you. And to begin, I would like to invite Dr. Alshire to share our first celebration.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, President Trujillo, Governing Board, Cabinet, Superintendent Hagegat. It is my pleasure just to highlight some really great work some of our leaders are doing in the district. Can we get to this slide? All right. So just my opportunity to recognize the work that Principal Fuentes over at Edison, Principal Botts over at Capital, and Principal Sells, who's actually here, accomplished just in this past week. These three wonderful leaders attended the CASE Principal Institute. During that 2-day training, they were exposed to literally dozens of case studies and scenarios outlining all of the different challenges and hurdles our principals do and overcome on a daily basis, professional, legal, and otherwise, as it relates to working with and advocating for students with exceptional needs. These leaders are now fully equipped with a variety of scenarios that they are excited to bring back to their fellow colleagues and continue the growth of our leaders here at Phoenix One. So I want to thank them for taking that 2 days of time for that training, as well as Director Zelvis for providing the funding that allowed us to attend in the first place.
Thank you, Dr. Alshire. And now I would like to introduce Ms. Alicia Selvis, Director of Exceptional Student Services, to share information with us on the sensory rooms.
Sensory rooms have become an important asset to supporting the needs of children and adults with autism and students who have social emotional needs that can be triggered in other environments. They're designated spaces accessible to students throughout the day where they can regulate their emotions under the supervision of a specially trained teacher. Research has shown that students who have access to those type of rooms have less instances of school avoidance and anxiety at school. Thanks to grant funding, we recently completed the installation of 2 sensory rooms for the students at Heard. We have both a stimulating and calming sensory room for the students. And we are excited to share that we will soon have sensory rooms at Edison and Emerson open to all of our students.
Last week, we had a district-wide spelling bee where all schools were able to participate. Today in the audience, you see several of our students that took part within that event. And to share more about it, we have Ms. Teresa Nicolaj, who will take the podium. Welcome.
Good evening. It's great to be here to celebrate our district spelling bee, especially for myself that did not grow up to be a strong speller. It's something that I'm exceptionally proud to see our children excel at. So I want to, at this time, have anybody that joined us at the spelling bee, any of our school coordinators that are here, please stand up and be appreciated. And he's on the school district's spelling bee. And they were all amazing. I learned a little spelling too. They were great.
Thank you and congratulations. We're so excited that we're going to be represented by such stronger spellers in our next step, which is our regional.
I didn't realize that Genesis was here.
Genesis, where are you, Genesis?
Genesis, come on.
Genesis, we're gonna be a
You
little-
saw you with your mask before. I'm so sorry.
Finally, we celebrated a number of staff members this past week by surprising them at their campuses and presenting the Star Award to these recipients. And I'd like to ask Dr. Vic Diaz to come up to the podium and share more details with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hayat. Madam President, members of the board, members of our community, I am so pleased to announce our most recent Star Award recipients. Star Awards stand for special thanks and recognition. As Dr. Hayat shared, last week we were on site at schools recognizing these folks with their peers, and we read many kind words about them. But today we just want to let you know who these folks were. If you are in the audience, when I say your name, if you could just stand up and wave, and so that way we can celebrate you. There were several different schools that we went to. The first was Arizona's premier public Montessori, Shaw Montessori. We recognize lead custodian Benita Mesa and social worker Laura Hildwin. The next school we visited last week was Lowell Elementary, where we recognize special education resource inclusion teacher Cynthia Almanza, as well as longtime office manager as well as one of our longtime employees, office manager, Mary Garcia. We also recognize from the I Academy, IEIS Alni Torres Blanco, and teacher Kathy Montero. The next school we recognized was Faith North Early Learning Center. We first recognized social worker Bernadette Duguay, as well as family and community engagement specialist Roxana Martinez. At Emerson Elementary School, we recognize both first grade teacher Stephanie Fuentes, as well as personal care attendant Juliana Medina Vasquez. At Hurd Elementary School, we recognize resource and inclusion teacher Denise Porter. And at Garfield Elementary School, we recognize multi-age English language arts teacher Trisha Chupp and crossing guard Jose Martinez. We also want to take just a moment to recognize the family members of all these staff members. Thank you. Thank you. Gracias. Gracias for lending us your loved ones. We know how much support they get from you at home, and we thank you so much for lending them to us for all the hours that they spend in our with our students and in our schools. So at this time, we'd like to ask our star winners to come up. We're going to take a picture with the governing board with all of our star award winners.
Yes, come on up, come on up. All of our Star Awards winners, todos los que ganaron, vengan, por favor, vamos a tomar una foto muy bonita. If we can have our spelling bee, thank you.
All right, was that the end of our item A6? Perfect. All right, with
Yes.
that, we will move on. That was really wonderful to see all of our principals sharing their gifts and stuff with our award winners. So I love it. I love the change. I like the transition from visiting them at school and then also celebrating here. So kudos, guys. That was wonderful. With that, we'll move on to item B1, our superintendent's report.
Yes, today I'd like to begin with gratitude for the support that we received from our board members with our events. We had the opportunity to be at the spelling bee, and we had also our board members there, Mr. Carrillo, Ms. Bueno, and Ms. Vink were able to attend. And in addition, we also had another event where our committee for our task force for family engagement met to continue discussions. And at that event, we had Ms. Trujillo and President Trujillo and Vice President Bueno. And so I just want to share our gratitude. It matters that you are at the different events, and I just don't want to ever have you feel overlooked because it's just awesome that you continue to support us. So thank you. Let's give them a nice round of applause. And earlier in the semester, we shared with our board that as part of our transition from Dunbar families to Magnet, that we have a commitment to continue to monitor their stay and their growth. And Dunbar families at Magnet will be receiving a feedback and interest survey for administration to better understand their experience at Magnet during the first semester and their interests regarding the 2023-24 school year, so that it could help us shape outcomes for our 7th and 8th graders. So we look forward to using those results of the survey for that future planning. And I look forward to sharing more information with you as we continue to get updates. I just never wanted that commitment to get lost. That is it for our superintendent comments. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to our board member reports. Item C1. Do either of you have any board reports to share?
Just to gratitude to everyone who put the event together for the spelling bee. It was brought me back to when I lost the spelling bee in my school to my older sister. So there's that. But thank you. It's an awesome opportunity, and if we can continue to go and support the students on the journey, I welcome that. And then the other one, she's not here, but Vice President Bueno was accepted into the school board cohort. So this is her commitment as a school board member to better serve our district, especially when it comes to narrowing in on anti-racist policy to better serve our historically excluded student communities. So I want to give a congratulations to her highly competitive fellowship that she and a few others from Arizona school board districts around the state were accepted. So I look forward to seeing how the wisdom that she gains through this cohort beneficially impacts our school district and our students through policy. So I just want to shout her out real quickly.
That's great news. I had no idea. Maybe she told me and it went in one ear and out the other. So I'm really glad you shared that. My board report was along the same lines. Ms. Bueno and I did attend the task force committee meeting, and it was really great to see the faces of our community out in the schools. And I did learn the new acronym of FACE, and it stands for Family and Community Engagement Specialist. Is that right? Close. Because it was on the word on the documents and stuff shared. So it was really nice to just kind of understand why everybody was there. That's literally the only reason I went. But it was great because it kind of set us up for success in our planning to do our community engagement events that we've got coming up over the next 10 weeks or so. So you'll definitely hear more about those in the coming week. And then the other item would just to let everybody know that your board members are staying in touch with what's going on at the legislature to stay mindful of the AEL. And if we need to, we will be calling on support, but we just wanted to let you know that we aren't forgetting that that's still something that has to happen for our schools to stay moving forward. So that was all I had for board reports. How about you, Dr. Vink? Nothing yet?
You guys are always very hard to follow. So
Ditto. Well, you do always show up to events, and I'm really grateful that you do that and you're out in the community. How can I fix this, Rocky, with the feedback there? Ah, you're the best. Thank you, guys. I will say that I did get a message from Ms. Bueno. She will be here closer to 6, and Miss Erica is still held up at work. I guess City of Phoenix has some Super Bowl stuff going on, so we'll be patient. And we will move on to our next item, which is item D1, our community communications. Do we have any this evening? No electronic ones?
We did
and no
not
in-person
receive
ones. Okay.
electronic or in-person communication.
Okay. All right. Not seeing anybody run to get a comment card, so we'll move right along. to item E1, the approval of our consent agenda.
Rajiv Gario, I motion to approve the consent agenda.
Alicia Vink, I second.
Glad everyone's feeling confident since we already moved item E8 out. So perfect. Do we have a motion to approve our agenda as our consent agenda as amended earlier? We did the first and seconds. All right, any other discussion? None from me. Ms. Sochi, with that, can we have a roll call vote when you're ready?
Roll call for Mr. Regional Carrillo,
Yay.
Dr. Alicia Vink,
Yes.
and Ms. Carmen Trujillo.
Aye.
Thank you.
With that, our motion does pass. Our consent agenda is approved and we will. Let's see. Move on to item F1, hopefully talk about our GIPLET agreement, correct?
Yes. So I want to not table this item. I still want to go forward with the vote, but just use this opportunity. I know we have, everyone knows we have a new superintendent and I don't want to assume things, but in terms of, I know you've been getting caught up in a lot. And so the GPLET is an issue, and I'm sure you're familiar with your past district, but is an issue that we had discussions about last semester with last year with the previous superintendent. And so I just want to clarify and reiterate our stance in opposing GPLETs as a district. And the conduit to that was the resolution of opposing GPLETs. Still being placed in a position where this is a tax incentive model that the city utilizes. That still shortchanges our school districts of needed tax revenues, but puts us in positions where we still have to accept these revenues or we get nothing. So I just want to reiterate our stance, and then also, I don't know if direct, I don't want to sound aggressive, but also see if there's opportunities where we can catch our superintendent up to speed on that history, and then particularly what kind of is our action plan going forward to hold these GPLETs accountable, or just communicate to them, especially this one, if it's a new one, I believe, to communicate to them what the deal is and make sure that they're paying what the GPLET deal entails that they pay to our district.
I'm going to open the floor to Mr. Thomas, who's been so gracious at working side by side with me, not just to understand some of the details, but where some of the things that we're in a position to take advantage of and some of the things that we're in a position to advocate for as we continue this journey together. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Thomas. Thank you.
I usually have a loud enough voice, it doesn't matter, but it's something that state provides in statute. Cities then take advantage of that or use it to the degree they want to. I understand the policy argument against them, being that these could be fully taxed, and the district probably would come out ahead if it were fully taxed and not be subject to a GPLET. But on this particular one, the city sets the rates for how much the district can get. We were actually hoping that the city had a newer structure in place, because we think that it probably ought to be higher based on the property values, because the last time they issued their guidance on this was 2014. So we were hoping for a more recent guidance, but instead that is what we're under. And it's kind of a done thing. It's either this amount or nothing. And so I share your concerns from a policy perspective about the concerns about the program.
Thank you. And I apologize for not sending these in earlier. I hope I'm not scaring anybody, but and then in terms of our contact at the GPLET, is there a plan to follow up with them to make sure again that they are paying what they is owed to us. Because as far as I know, and of course, correct me if I'm wrong, there's really no accountability from the city. There's no follow-up from the city to make sure they're going to pay what we're owed. So it's up to us to make sure that we're on top of them, right?
Right. Well, it's an agreement. They're obligated legally. Your CFO is listed as the contact person. If those payments do not flow, your CFO has every right to contact the city through their legal counsel, if you choose, and let them know that they're not paying those required payments.
And we choose. And so we will make sure that Mr. Manley has an opportunity to follow up on this and perhaps any other that may have not been brought to us.
Yeah, just my last comments would just a follow up on that, making sure that we're able to follow up and ensuring that those deals are being honored, and then also just get an update on or just more clear information on what the deal entails. Like, how do we know that they're not, other than not paying us, like, how do we know that they're not following statute, that they're not living up to what the bargain says?
Well, I mean, in vetting the agreement, we certainly looked at what the statute provided and what it was required. So your agreement's solid. Now it's following through on the agreement. And we will, be monitoring that with your CFO to make sure that they follow through on those payments. And again, there are many avenues to go, if they do not, certainly liaisoning with the city to make sure that because they very much need the city to do what they're trying to do too, and have the city be supportive of their efforts. So we certainly can make sure that the city knows if they're not making those payments.
Thank you. That's about it. I just want to read that, and then also just put on your plate as something not to do right now, but just to get caught up on this GPLIT. And our contact last time was, I believe she's the Director of Economic Development. It was Christine Mackey, who helped us get caught up on what the deals were and the history of GPLITs in Phoenix specifically. So thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Thomas, since it got pulled from consent and it is something that we are interested in having approved, do we
Yes,
approve it on its own?
Yes, you can make a motion to take action on it. It was already noticed for action, so it'd be ripe for approval of the agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder, Dr. Hoyga. Does anyone else have anything to add to the discussion? If not, then I motion to go forward with approving this GPLIT agreement.
I did want to say that I do share your concern, because I remember that some of the problems were that these builders weren't following through because they would sell their businesses or stop building on them, and things would just be delayed. And that's where I think we would not end up following up either, so I do share your concern, because I do want this money that is owed to us. And during our agenda prep session, Ms. Bueno and I did share that with Dr. Hagiga as well. So I fully, I'm in agreement, and we'll make sure we follow up on this and get all those answers for you. So with that, I will second the motion to approve this item. And any other discussion? With that, may we have a roll call vote to approve the GPLIT agreement with Battery Lofts LLC?
Okay, roll call. Mr. Regional Carrillo,
Yay.
Dr. Alicia Vink,
Yes.
and President Carmen Trujillo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, our motion does pass. Our GPLIT is approved, and we will move on to our Exceptional Student Services Program update, please.
Thank you. I am going to turn it over to Dr. Gonzalez, who will introduce our next speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez.
Good evening, Board President, board members, cabinet members, and our audience. It's a pleasure to have Director Alicia Zelvis at the helm of our Exceptional Student Services Department. And we wanted to provide an update for the governing board so that they can see some of the programming that's happening currently, but also to see what our long-term vision is for helping to ensure that all of our students are achieving at their highest potential. So with that, I'll turn it over to Director Alicia Zelvis.
Good evening, Governing Board President Trujillo, esteemed members of the board, Dr. Davila Hagigat, and members of our Phoenix One community. I'm Alicia Zelvis. I'll be your cruise director for the Exceptional Student Services Department for the next 10 minutes. The research on best practices for exceptional student services focuses on providing our tailored programming to meet individual student needs, our students with IEPs, our students that have been identified as having disabilities, ensuring the team is comprised of highly effective and skilled staff who have a philosophy of inclusion. So we know that those academics, for our students that aren't exposed to their grade level curriculum, are less likely to be able to demonstrate mastery or demonstrate growth in attaining their IEP goals. So all of these pieces are really important in the puzzle to make sure that we're providing the best services for our students with exceptional needs. Where is my clicker? There you are. Okay, thank you. Okay, so as we're focused on student outcomes as a district, I just want to share with you our outcomes and goals for our students with exceptionalities. As we want to increase the percentage of students demonstrating proficiency in math, we also want to make sure that we're seeing proficiency in ELA, reduce our number of students with emotional disabilities currently in more restrictive environments. So what we sometimes call our self-contained classrooms, and really opening opportunities for them to access their general curriculum and their general ed peers more often. And then really are focused on the outcome of providing more highly effective staff with specialized training for the role in our department. So I just wanted to start with where we are, and we'll kind of go into where we're going from here. And our professional development this year, what we've been offering to go along with our outcomes and support our students. This is just a sampling of what we have planned for the year, and also some that we've already accomplished. So if you see, our Eagles team is in the process of completing their first year of their autism modules that are focused on the aspects of understanding neurology, behavioral science, communication, sensory, and learning needs related to education of students with autism. So Eagles stands for Exceptionally Independent Growing Learners. That's what we call the program at Emerson. We also have increased our training with our staff for Boys Town specialized classroom model to assist with spreading awareness to about students with emotional disabilities, not just in our specialized program, but to students across the district that are showing up with emotional disabilities and a higher need for social emotional supports. We are in the process of implementing Prepare curriculum, which was developed by NASP, which is the National Association for School Psychologists. Their leadership has provided this evidence-based resource and consultation related to school crisis and prevention response, is what Prepare is. And then our assistive technology focus is primarily right now in our psychology and speech therapy evaluation staff, and making sure that we are putting the right tools in the hands of our students to help them become more independent. And our clinical case studies is something that's part of our all full evaluation staff as well, where we look at providing samples of students and problem solving together in a collaborative team focused activity, where our evaluation teams, they discuss student needs, work together to select equitable evaluation systems, and look for unique strategies for special education consideration. And that's actually an action step as part of our equity plan to make sure that we're not over-identifying students based on race, ethnicity, or first language other than English. So I want to highlight our new teacher mentor program and how far we've come in the last 2 years. We've utilized ESSER funds to obtain a teacher mentor for exceptional student services. Our Brianna Scott is an amazing support to our team members. And as you can see, we've grown the program to not just include our very new teachers, but any newcomers to the district. And we have a 3-year cycle where you start as a newcomer your first year, but you remain with support 3 years through the system. So here's some of our feedback related to professional development. I'll just wanted to share a few samples with you. We have quite a bit of amazing feedback on some of the supports we've provided this year. And then also just a visual kind of the impact. This was a survey as part of our mentors evaluation last year. And I just wanted to put into visual form her impact in words that's from our new teachers. Okay, so another where we are now, celebrations. And I have to admit, I completely forgot to celebrate the fact that we did hire a new health and wellness coordinator. Her name is Jamie Oliver. So that should have been part of our celebrations earlier. Welcome, Jamie. Yes. Yes, our community deserves that. And I look forward to having you meet Jamie in the future. So other celebrations are sensory room development. I have to really praise the work that our curriculum and instruction team has done as a whole. Our director, Teresa Nikolic, has provided our teams with training for all. So we're seeing a lot of differentiated training coming out of curriculum and instruction for all of our employees, not just our teachers that are teaching the general content. There, for example, I put letters training on there. We have resource teachers and some of our teachers in our specialized programs that are becoming letters trained, which is phenomenal opportunity for their reading instruction. So our Autism Support Club, which I know some of you have attended, so thank you for joining. And some of my team members have as well. That's hosted by the Emerson staff and partners. We have students that are graduating from specialized programs this year. So we're working on what is called classing out. And in our program for our students with emotional disabilities, we're seeing students classing out for the first time in the last 3 years. So we'll have more data on that to follow, hopefully by the end of the year, to help meet those goals. And then another huge celebration is our intensive therapeutic intervention program, where we've been able to establish a program that is focused on keeping students in school and supporting our staff with strategies for de-escalation of students and in crisis, and taking a closer look at how we provide that higher level of support to our students without removing them from their learning environment. The other fun stuff like ADE compliance monitoring cycle, we are in the tail end of our monitoring cycle as far as corrective action, and we've received feedback that we should be out of that, exited by February. We have high staff retention rates with our speech therapist, psychologist, and occupational physical therapy staff. And we've done amazing work this year to create pre-K to kindergarten IEP transitions with a very family-focused timeline, making sure that our families of our kids with IEPs in preschool, they know what opportunities they have for their kids going into kindergarten and are ready. And now by this month, able to go on wait lists at Shaw like everyone else, make sure that if they want to choose a school for the arts and dual language, they can do that now because they have all the information they need to get their kids enrolled for kindergarten now. So we really were focused on equity with that evaluation. timeline. And then the recent autism programming updates, not just the support of the sensory room, but creating that support through professional development and combining the programs to one site where they used to be two, so that we're able to share more resources and provide a higher level of support. So what is next? The fun stuff. Ribbon cutting ceremony. So stay tuned. We would like to invite the board to join us for some cutting ceremonies at Heard, Emerson, and Edison. We're looking at earlier timelines for Edison and Heard. And then we would really like to celebrate Autism Appreciation Month in April by utilizing the ribbon cutting ceremony at that time. So I'll have dates to you soon on that. And then we're wanting to incorporate more professional development on co-teaching, because we know that's where that tier 1 instruction is so important for all kids. And if we're not shoring that up and providing our specialists in the room to help our teachers become stronger and work with all students, that's really where the work needs to be. And so we want to incorporate more professional development on co-teaching this year. And then we have PTR training, which stands for Prevent, Teach, Reinforce, which will be attended by our social workers, behavior interventionists, psychologists, and PBIS teams this spring. This is going to be established so that we can create a common language for behavior assessments, behavior interventions across the district, and to enhance our equitable practices for children needing that social emotional intervention. And then I want to thank the board for approving our SAVE contract, which is our statewide contract to enable us to purchase more professional services or contracted services. This is helping us to get our positions filled in our high needs areas where we've had vacancies all year. So that was appreciated. Thank you to the board and community for helping us establish that contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. Board President, board members, a little known fact is that Phoenix #1 was the first district to have a special education director as part of their administrative team. And Alicia also leads as the incoming president for an association of special education directors for the state. So we're really pleased to have her on our team and to continue to support the great work that Phoenix #1 has established in caring for all our children.
Thank you.
If there are any questions or comments.
Yes. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. I do have some questions regarding just a couple things. So just give me a second here. So just regarding, I guess, contracts and then the co-teaching model, for the co-teaching model, how many staff support for the co-teaching model? And then where is that co-teaching model being implemented and what school sites? And if you don't know, then you can provide that information at a later date.
Yeah, board member Correa, we, when I came into the district, the teams have already been trained in co-teaching. And one thing that the meet and confer process has assisted with is keeping our ratios low for our resource inclusion teachers, and where we are at a recommended ratio of 20 students to 1, which is very competitive and feasible number. So we have 2 to 3 resource teachers on each campus. But it also depends on the student, not just count. We use like a weighted technique to look at caseloads and balance. But we have co-teaching right now. The expectation is that all resource teachers co-teach in at least 1 grade level. So the focus would be 1 grade level per site. And that's more because when we're when we're trying to build relationships and we have multiple grade levels that we're working with, we really want them to solidify a strong relationship with one teacher. Because co-teaching is really, when you take the training, they talk to you about it. It's like a marriage. And you want a really strong bond with that person and level of respect. So at this point, the steps we've taken is that expectation that our resource teachers are co-teaching in one grade level. Majority of our students have some type of co-teaching minutes in all of their IEPs. So.
Thank you. And then and just because we talked about like assistive technology and co-teaching, do we have any students with exceptional students that are learning through accessing our education through the iAcademy?
We do, yeah.
Okay, and then how do we support them? Do they come on campus and get support, or are we supporting them?
It really just depends on their individual needs. So the beauty of an IEP is we can basically detail what we want it to be. Those services for our students in the iAcademy currently are getting their services online as part of their day from a resource teacher. So that the services, if they needed access or those kind of things, most of their assistive technology would be built into their browsers or those kind of things. We also have, should a student have a need, we have systems for checking out equipment directly to them and placing in their hands.
And do they get trained on how to use this assistive technology?
Yeah, so we've worked with the Department of Education every year for the last 3 years to have at least one training on assistive technology per year. And you happen to have a resident assistive technology specialist at hands, because that's what my former role was for 8 years. So I'm very passionate about that field.
All right, thank you. And then switching to contracting. So you said that we contract with Save Contract. Did I hear that correct?
Yes, Save is a type of contract that we utilize. It's a statewide contract that we established with the help of our procurement department, so that we could work with a large variety of agencies throughout the state to help us with placement of staffing based on our needs.
And is there a time limit for when that contract ends?
It's a 5-year contract.
Oh, it's a 5-year contract.
So we have the ability to work with those teams under their proposals for the next 5 years.
Okay, just because, and did we use ESSER funds to pay for the contract?
So the contract is just an agreement that we will work with those. They're already approved vendors, basically. Is we will choose them over others. And so we use that contract to select as needed services as they come up. So it's no cost to us until we decide to engage one of those vendors to purchase a service, employ a professional.
Okay, and then that leads me to, for the PD services, and I asked because I'm glad we're contracting and it builds up our capacity because we lack staff. But is it building a model of sustainability for our teachers to not just continue to rely on that, but be able to have that knowledge and continue to teach it long after like we stop those contract services?
Yeah, so we actually, many of the contract services that we use are for staffing. So for example, we have an extreme shortage of instructional assistants on our sites. We use these agencies, we have contracts with these agencies to help recruit and retain them. So they fill the positions, but our intention is to, if we feel that it's a good fit for both parties and, primarily our students, that we want to engage those recruits to become district hires.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. And I really was impressed by that autism support group, because those questions can be so very individualized for the parent or the teacher asking them. So it's close to my heart, and I'm really
glad to know that's going on. No questions for me, just looking forward to these celebrations you mentioned, and we'd love to celebrate with you and participate and show our support for the kids. Thank you.
Thank
Right. If there's nothing else for that item, team, Dr. Davila Hagiga and Dr. Gonzalez, we can move on to our next information item.
Yes, thank you. This next information item we have so that our governing board members have an opportunity to discuss the board meetings, the future board meetings that were scheduled for February 7th and February 21st. And so the proposal that is on the table is that on February 7th, we have these meetings virtually beginning at 7 p.m. so that we can open up the time that is needed for our student outcome focused governance community outreach meetings. And so we wanted to bring this up as part of my check-in with our officers to see if this is something that is agreeable by our board members, where the February 7th, 2023 governing board meeting is virtual at 7 p.m. and we cancel the February 21st, 2023 meeting, but put those items where they are needed either before or after so that we don't miss out.
Thank you for the explanation. Yes, this change came about after trying to organize and plan our community engagement sessions on certain days of the week that would be better for campuses. So that is where the idea comes from. And I would love to hear your guys' feedback on it.
We don't need to vote on it.
We do not. This is an information item just so that we can get a feel for, is this something that all of our governing board members are able to do? And if they agree with the thought of having this as open spaces for our community outreach meetings.
Absolutely, because I value your guys' input and want to make sure we're all participating in our work for student outcome focused governance.
So we're gonna have the student outcomes focus that meeting sometime earlier than that with the community.
Yes.
It's gonna be those meetings.
I
Okay.
believe, and I don't have the calendar in front of me, but the best times for some of the schools was between 4:30 and 6:30. So if we finish up by 6, we could get home, log on the few people that are presenting, just so that way we can make sure everything for payroll and consent agenda moves through. Because I don't believe we had a very large agenda for that.
And part of our commitment is to keep many of our items as consent because we are going out to our community to get their input. Of course, if something shows up that is pressing, I will always come to you to make sure that that gets addressed as well.
Absolutely. So I forgot to mention that. That was a huge part as well, is that they weren't really full busy agendas.
Okay. I can do the virtual because I have a full day until the 5:15. Can we do the event on Monday? The community event on Monday, or have they been sent out already?
I could do either or. It was literally like for those schools, it was that I think the feedback we got was that it would be better on those days.
On Tuesday? Okay.
Mhm. So of course I Miss Bueno was here because she would know it off the top of her head, but I know that part is up for discussion because we have to still get that flyer out. So definitely let's have that discussion with her because she's creating that. So
The other piece, Board Member Carrillo, is that we're having 2 of our meetings per night. And so the recommendation is that 2 board members attend, and perhaps that's one of the meetings that our other 4 board members would be able to do, therefore allowing you for your other commitments to also be addressed. That could be an option.
Yeah, because I can do one Monday, just like not as an exception, because I know we're going to continue them, but just one this Monday and then whatever else is planned can proceed, and then I can join virtually, still join the meeting virtually or my personal schedule.
I don't have any thoughts. It's fine. So I think it's probably easier if it just gets scheduled and I work around whatever it is. It's fine. Thank you.
I think that gives us the input that we were looking for. So I'll turn it over to you, President Trujillo.
Agreed. I will definitely get with Ms. Bueno on this, to move forward with our sessions and then connecting with each of you on which ones you can participate in and which ones are not, don't fit your schedule very well. But for sure, it's nothing set in stone yet. We literally just got all the feedback back from our schools on what times and just what all that looks like as far as availability for parents, community, teachers, and things.
Yeah, please, even if it's a rough draft, send those dates so I can block them out in my calendar as quick as I can.
Perfect. All right, with that, I think we can move on to item H1, which is having a vote to adjourn to executive session. However, I know we've got
Point of clarification, will we be doing G1 and 2 before we move to H?
my apologies. I was
That's okay.
putting all my notes going through, and that was the last thing I had was our items for our board meetings. My apologies. So yes, do we have any for items G1? Do we have any future?
I wouldn't say a future agenda item, but just probably sometime during the summer. Someone brought it up is what what's happening at the legislature, but just specifically a community update, an update for the community on what our situation is financially at the legislature, what's moving forward. I know that affects us, but I also would like our community for us to be communicating that information to our community of what I know there's a lot of talk now of what our state leadership is doing and what our legislature wants to do. But sometime in the summer, what actually gets passed, and just to bring that to our community and let them know there's some positive. I'm remaining optimistic about funding and some repeals that might happen, but also just want to communicate anything to our community in regards to state education funding.
Absolutely. Great point. Mr. Thomas is always so helpful understanding all of that. So I know he'd be helpful in getting that figured out for us once we do have a budget that's passed and we can take that plan back to the community. So yes, got it. Me either. All right, with that, any board requests?
I just want to request an update on our firearm storage resolution and whether those items have been added to any of the parent communication that we are providing, and whether we have been able to provide trigger locks or anything like that. I think we talked about at some point. That's all.
Okay, I do have one more. But again, this is long-term. Whenever it's convenient for our district admin. Something I've been thinking about is just in terms of sustainability initiatives is like a study to some type of study that can study the cost savings, short and long term of I'll say retrofitting, which I'm not sure if that's the right word, or landscape, to be more environmentally sustainable. I know probably in the short term probably will be expensive, but in the long term, how much that can save us as a district using water tolerant, low water use trees, stuff like that. Yeah, that's again something long term. I know we have a lot more to focus on, but that's something that I've just been thinking about.
Absolutely, regarding all of the PD you've done for our urban
heat impact. So I do feel a sense of urgency about it. So we'll definitely follow up. I think that might go with our facilities assessment request. I'm not too sure if that includes all of the grounds and keeping, so I guess we'll learn. Other than that, hearing no other board reports, we can move forward to adjourning to executive session.
I have a point of clarification regarding our executive session. This evening, we will have an opportunity to engage in one of the two items that were recommended in our agenda. And we will engage in the negotiations with employee organizations regarding the salary schedule, and compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits and employees of the public body. We will not engage in the other item that was represented here. That will come at a future time.
All right, thank you very much. With that, I'd like to request a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss those two items.
Raji Carrillo, I motion to adjourn for executive session.
Alicia Vink, I second.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Wonderful. With that, the board will adjourn to executive session. With no voting will be done in the room. Any votes will be done out here in the public, and I don't think will be longer than an hour and a half. So may we please have a roll call vote to adjourn to executive session?
Thank you. Mr. Regional Carrillo,
Yay.
Dr. Alicia Vink,
Yes.
and President Carmen Trujillo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, our motion passes and we will adjourn to executive session at 6:31 p.m. Thank you all and see you back here shortly for whoever's still here.